Welcome. Hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell. Thank you for listening. This is Joey. Let's get right to it. Now, this is a rare opportunity to point out something in live time that I don't think a lot of black people in America get to really explore. We never really discuss as a people, where exactly do immigrants come from and why they have the attitudes that they do towards black people. Now, in the last episode, we touched on why black people coon. And I went over a little bit that black people are far from the only people that coon in this country. And that cooning, the degree of cooning that other cultures do towards white people, is a display of submission and allegiance to white society and white ideology. And one of the most textbook and successful ways that you can coon to white people as a non-black, non-white immigrant, or even an African immigrant, one of the best ways that you can curry favor with the dominant society is to lash out or take a stance against black people. If you distance yourself from the blacks, if you separate yourself or show some sort of opposition to the blacks, it can potentially curry favor with the whites. And everybody knows this. And I touched on that briefly. Now, I wanted to point out in live time where these immigrant coons come from. Why all of the immigrants who live in America have such a reflexively anti-black American stance when they come here. Now, you hear from Africans who are coons that come to America, when you've cornered them down and they're out of excuses and they can no longer use the, when the police pull me over, they don't ask if I'm African, and they can't use the "who are you to question my blackness" excuses. When you've depleted all of their maneuvers and they're left with nothing but to tell you the truth, what they'll tell you often as a last ditch effort before they throw a smoke bomb and yell "ninja vanish" and run out the room, what they'll tell you often is they are told when they immigrate here, they are told by their parents, and their parents are told by immigration offices directly, don't trust them niggas over there, right? Don't meddle with the black Americans. Stay away from the Akata. There's even African songs about what the immigration office told them when they came here, right? But they're not really being 100% truthful even then. You see, the foreign immigrant coon is vetted and molded for his or her coon qualities long before they're talked to in an immigration office. That's like the last pep talk before you take off. Like, okay, remember what we told you? The entire process of becoming an immigrant is one that most Americans aren't really familiar with. We think that people fly over here, get a visa, and then their visa expires, and now you're an illegal immigrant. Or we think that you smuggled yourself over here, crossing the border. That's only for people who share borders with us, right? A majority of the immigrants living in this country don't come from Mexico. What I want you to watch, and what I want you to pay attention to, is the type of immigration that most directly affects black communities. And it's the type of immigration that always leads to a hostile immigrant group, right? These are people that should be scared, shaking, cold, shivering, hiding immigrants in a shipping container, but they're telling you to hurry up and buy or some shit in your neighborhood, right? Well, let me tell you how this happens. A large majority of the immigrants living in this country, often under the title of refugee. Being a refugee immigrant is completely different than being any other type of immigrant. If you are a refugee immigrant, you literally fled your country as it collapsed, falling behind you, coming over here to greener pastures. You didn't move over here. See, a lot of immigrants come over here with money. They might be doctors and lawyers and engineers where they're from, and they come here with money. They come here comfortably, and they overstay their visas for whatever reason. Sometimes just an honest mistake. Forgot I had to redo that shit. I almost forgot what I was doing, right? But refugees are people who are planted over here. They all move over in one spot. They're all over here as part of a program that's subsidized by the government. They're all given special magical treatment. And you may be wondering why the United States of America all of a sudden has this giant heart for certain people and not others, right? Well, here's why. And this is the bomb I'm going to drop on your head. When you see groups of immigrants come into the country as refugees, these are often the snitches and collaborators and assets that were working in that country. This is why they got to flee. You see, there's a misconception that when America or any dominant military comes in and occupies space, that we just come in with a bunch of tanks and bombs and jets and shit and just stand over in your country and we just took it over. That's not how conquering works. That's never how conquering works. The most valuable asset, the most valuable thing, the most valuable resource in military action is information. Before one soldier steps 1 foot onto your territory, they know everything they need to know about how approachable your defenses are, about if you have defenses, about what your weaknesses are, and they get all this information. They know all about the mood and attitude of the people that constitute your nation and how to best divide it and send it into chaos and unrest. And they get this kind of information from locals and traitors and spies within your nations. Before we showed up to Afghanistan, there were plenty of Afghanistan snitches and sellouts and turncoats within their communities that helped give us the intelligence to be able to most efficiently show up and take over your country. And when we're occupying your territory, those snitches, those assets, those collaborators, they're rewarded right in your face. These are people, let's take Afghanistan, for example, and this is the example I want to use. All the people you see clinging on to the wings of the plane and clinging on to the landing equipment, these are people that don't want America to go. These are people that during America's occupation in Afghanistan, these were the snitches and the assets and the do-boys that sold out their Afghan people and collaborated with America to help America be able to pull that off. These are the people that whenever the Taliban would try to fight back and resist America from coming into their country, these people worked with America against the Taliban, their own people. They worked against the Afghan people to form what we see as the Afghan government, but what the Afghan people see as a damn puppet government that does whatever the United States says. You don't got to like the Taliban. You don't got to like what they stand for and all that stuff, but you can't just come into a country and take it over and change it around, right? But these are all the people that got made administrators. Think about it. When you're a snitch for somebody, when you're a Huggy Bear, Starsky and Hutch are going to treat Huggy Bear good, right? You're a good little snitch. So you got to imagine for 20 years, we occupied that country for 20 years. Imagine for 20 years, the nigga who sold you out and snitched you out, He gets to be your boss for 20 years. While your enemy military is sitting there occupying your country, giving him pats on the head. Good job, Ahmed, for telling us where these niggas was at. Now you get his land. Here, you get all his camels and shit. So imagine you got to sit there and see that for 20 years, right? And now that army that's been occupying you is about to leave. And it's about to just be you and that snitch. What you think finna happen? There ain't no culture on the planet where humans exist and humans interact with each other that I've discovered. There's no human society in history that I've ever discovered where snitches don't get stitches. Even amongst the police, if you're a whistleblower, snitches get stitches. So all them people in Afghanistan that you see clinging to the airplanes and shit, they're not clinging to the airplanes for women's rights or human rights. Please. They're clinging to them. They're clinging to that landing gear, trying to climb in and get on the plane as it takes off because they know that they've been snitches and corrupt people and collaborators with the enemy over there for damn near 2 decades. And as you know, snitches get stitches. So what are they going to do? So you're America and you're like, okay, all our assets, all our intelligence assets, all our administrators of our occupation here, all the turncoats we use to flip this country, they're not safe here. You make promises in order to get people to do your bidding. We got to put them somewhere. And this is how you get your immigrants. This is how you get a large portion of your immigrants is refugees. And refugee used to mean that there's some sort of a war-torn country or some sort of a crisis, and we're letting people in the country temporarily because, you know, things are messed up where they're from. But once things improve, you got to go right back. No, refugee don't mean that no more. We've used refugee as part of our foreign policy. We'll tear up your country. We'll do a regime change. We got all these assets and snitches over here working with us to get this regime change. Oh shit, it fell through? Okay, bring all the snitches home. Look at Iran from back in the day. Look at Iran in the 70s when we tried to introduce a puppet government. We brought back the Shah of Iran, right? The Shah was our puppet. He was our asset. He was our boy. His job was to go in there and steal all the wealth and steal all the money and mess up the power and do whatever we said and be a puppet vassal state. That was the whole point. They tried to have all these corrupt Iranian people that were really American puppets go in there and take over the administration of the country. And what happened? Iranian Revolution, right? Swept them out. And all you saw was people from the embassy clinging on to helicopters as they flew away, right? You saw Iranian snitches and assets, people from the Shah of Iran's families, they all disappeared. Where do you think they disappeared to? They came back home. They live in America. Most of the immigrant people that you see walking around America of any culture, of any race, especially super duper bold italics and underline, especially if you see them here recently. If you look around and see some big group of a culture, some big ethnic group that just got here recently and they all live in one spot, those are refugees. Those are snitches. Those are traitors of their own home countries. That's why they be having completely different opinions of the country than the people that still live there. Talk to some Cubans that live in Cuba and then go talk to the Cubans that live in Florida that hate black people, that love the Republican Party and think America's perfect. Those are Bay of Pig Republic. Those are Bay of Pig Cubans. Those are Cubans that hated Castro but loved Batista, who was the puppet American leader in Cuba. Horrible dictator, killed millions of people, but he hated black folks just like a lot of the Cubans that live in Florida. And he was the American's boy. So they didn't say shit. A lot of the Cubans that live in Cuba that be crying about the tragedies that Castro brought them and shit, these were people that used to run over the regular people that lived in Cuba like dogs when Batista was in charge. And then Batista's ass got ran the hell up out of town. And all those snitches and collaborators and oppressors that worked for the United States of America to shit on the majority of the poor people in Cuba, they had to get the hell out of town, and they fled to Florida, where they've been licking their wounds ever since. You ain't never noticed that there's always a big influx of an ethnic group that just happens to be whatever country we're warring with at the time? Oh, all the Koreans came here in the 60s, in the 50s and 60s. I wonder why. You ain't never noticed that there be big, like, look, they're planning to drop all them Afghani snitches off in Texas somewhere. There's going to be your little Texas Afghan enclave with a bunch of Afghanistan people who don't like niggas. They ain't never met a nigger before in their life unless one of us was handing them a water bottle in some dusty field somewhere. But they know they don't like niggers because they're going to know the second they come off that ship. They're going to know the second they come off the plane, if you want to stay over here and be cool, when them cameras get in your face, you look them cameras in the eye and say, I love America, and black people are lazy and they don't take advantage of their opportunities. They're going to get set up shop. They're not going to get put in a damn Astrodome like it's Hurricane Katrina. They're going to get set up shop in a community, ready made. And I want black people to see just how quickly and how easily a group of people can be given a starter package here in America. I want you to look at these Afghan immigrants that get dropped off as a group in the middle of Texas. When you hear people say, I came to this country with nothing, this is what they really mean. They don't mean they came here on their own, swim the damn Atlantic and just set up shop on their own. They say, I came here with nothing. What they're really saying is, no, I really came here with nothing and America put me on. My snitch ass family came over here in the 60s or the 80s or the 50s with absolutely nothing as we fled our country that ran us out of town because we were some sellout turncoat ass niggas. And we came here with nothing and America put us on. America put us in the middle of some little village and called it little wherever we're from. America gave us grant money and funding money so that we could set up our little 7-Elevens and shit. They don't be coming over here all hardworking and just motivated like they make you sound like they make you think with them fisherman tales they tell now that they're set up. No, they come over here under policy of the U.S. government. Think about this. This is what cracks me up. Are there not immigrants down at the borders forming what has been called for years now a caravan? Not the caravan of love from like Ernie Jasper Isley. I mean like a caravan of immigrants, right? So there's a log jam of people trying to get into the country. There are ICE agents working the borders and major border cities and flushing people out of the country every day. You got a caravan of people guarded at a border by Border Patrol agents with rifles, right? It's that hard to get in the country. But somehow a large group of Afghani snitches from the other side of the world are already predetermined and pre-screened to be flown in and dropped off in the middle of Texas, where they don't play that immigration shit and you're not hearing a peep from anybody. That don't sound weird to you, that the entire process of how immigration works in the country is circumvented without a peep from either side. That lets you know that this whole immigration thing is just a show and that they can at will just let anybody in under the guise of cover, under the dead of night, and you really won't know. And let me ask you something. Has anybody checked to look at the demographics of the portion of Texas that they're dropping all these snitches off into? It's going to be a black area. Because white people like to play not in my backyard. We need to get a new sewage system that, well, I don't want it over here. And it ends up in the black part of town. You're the sin eater. You're the liver. So all these Afghani snitches who are going to be intrinsically hostile to black people because that's how they stay on white folks' good sides, right? These aren't just regular Afghan people coming over here. Hell, if it was the Taliban coming over here, niggas in the Taliban wouldn't have any interaction. They would stay to themselves. But because these are going to be Afghans that have been working with white people, even over in their own countries for decades, these are people who are prone to kissing up to and collaborating with this system. You think they're not going to, like, if they sold their own people out for America, what do you think they're going to do when they interact with your black ass? The black person who's known by their master to be the enemy of them. They know white folks don't like niggas. They sold their own people out in their own country. They stared the Taliban down the eyes and said, I'm going to sell y'all out. And I know y'all blow niggas up. I'm going to sell y'all out here. So what do you think they're going to do when they're here in America with the wind at their back, right? Getting patted on the head for being good boys all this time for 20 years. What do you think they're going to do when they get over here and get planted over us? Just like the Asians have. Just like the other Arabs have. Just like even the Africans and the Hispanics have. Like the gays have. When they get put over us here in America, this is where the bitch ass Asians that want you to hurry up and buy and stay out of their store come from. They're not the regular Asians. They're the Asians for whatever country we had beef with at the time, for whatever campaign that didn't work out, and they had to come over here. Most of the immigrants you see in America, the reason why they're so hostile to black folks is because these are intelligence assets. These are spies and snitches and collaborators that have been working with the U.S. for years. And for their loyalties and for their safety, they're brought over here at the end of their jobs. You get to see it live with Afghanistan. You're seeing people cling on to these planes. You're seeing pictures of hundreds of thousands of people in these military planes being flown directly to Texas. In the same planes that all them other little children in countries that we weren't needing to use were getting flown back and disappeared, right? Now these people are getting flown into the country, no questions asked, and being told, hey, U.S. Airlines, you better make room for these people on these flights. So they're not getting the immigrant go home treatment. You notice that. You notice there's not even no hullabaloo from the normal peanut gallery. Normally there'd be a bunch of red MAGA hats and cowboy hats out there going, keep these foreigners out my country. You notice all of them are dead quiet because they're with it too. They know these are the snitches. America is a witness protection program for snitches all around the world. That's what a lot of these immigrants really are in America. And it's been that way for years. It's been that way for decades, especially when you're talking about third world countries. Every time you see a wave of a certain ethnic group coming, look at all the Somalis that are here, all the Somalis in Minnesota. Do you think a bunch of Somalis just decided, I come to America for a better life? No, that's the shtick line that they're told to say in the cameras, because when you're in America and we put these cameras on you in the news and shit, you're on a commercial for the rest of the world. Like, like, this is going to sound unrelated, but hear me out. Like back in the day when they used to put a microphone in a football player's face and ask them, you just won the Super Bowl, what you going to do? And they go, I'm going to Disneyland. Y'all know that's fake, right? That's a Disney commercial that they had preconceived with that player should he get on camera after the Super Bowl, just because it's a big moment. That nigga didn't really decide with his black ass, I'm a grown ass man, I'm going to go to Disneyland. That nigga's going to the strip club. That nigga's going to his prostitute's house. He ain't going to damn Disneyland. He going to Disneyland for a couple of days on a sponsorship to advertise for Disney. That's why Kevin Garnett messed up this years ago. Real niggas know when the Celtics won the NBA playoffs, they won the NBA finals, and Kevin Garnett was supposed to have a deal with Adidas to say the phrase "impossible is nothing" live on the air, and that nigga messed it up, was yelling it all hard, anything is possible, and he messed up the line. It was supposed to be a big moment because all eyes are on you. So whenever these immigrants get on camera and some news ladies ask them, so how you feel about America? They know when they look in that camera and say, America awesome, blacks are lazy. That's an advertisement to the world. It's meant to counteract all the bad publicity America gets all the time. So these people are phony. These immigrants you see in the country that are used to advertise this whole streets are paved with gold mentality, these people are collaborators. They're actors. They're snitches. So I just want you to keep an eye on that when you see these planes. This is where your snitches come from. This is where your hostility from foreigners comes from. Didn't nobody tell them in an immigration video, hey, watch out for those niggers? They imply it in the videos. I've seen the videos where every time you see a black person, he's some shadowy thief in the night. But by the time they show them those videos, those are like a quick little refresher course before they go out in America. By the time they show them those videos, that's just reinforcing thoughts they already have because they see America through white eyes because they've been working with white people the whole time. This is how you get a person like a Nikki Haley, who's an Indian, who's an East Indian on paper, but she's up here with a white accent. She's got her little Farrah Fawcett hairdo. And she really thinks in her mind she passes, and maybe they'll think she's a dark-skinned Italian, right? She really thinks in her mind that she passes. You can tell she's been bleaching her skin a little bit. You can tell she thinks she passes, and she's got the nerve to be up in front of Congress with a white accent talking about how the blacks don't assimilate. That's the kind of stuff you can get. You can get somebody like a Sagar from The Hill. Well, I guess they're on a show called Breaking Point now, who's clearly some Indian dude, right? Who openly brags and talks about how he gets to be in soirees and beer functions and wine tastings and talks with Republican white colleagues. He ain't thinking about being Indian. And you know, real Indians chilling in Bombay right now are like, oh, that bitch ass Hindu. Like they don't respect him. Oh, that bitch ass Punjab. I don't know what every culture. Let me tell you something. I used to take a Mandarin class back in the day. And in the Mandarin class, I don't know if I've said this before on an episode, but it was super awkward. It made me realize every culture got this. The woman teaching the Mandarin class is Chinese. The woman teaching the Mandarin class was from the mainland. She was from China. She was from Beijing. So you know that means she was from the people's, she was from the CCP. There was a lot of Asians in the class, but they were Asian Americans. And they were taking the class because, they've heard their grandmother or their grandfather speak Mandarin, and they're familiar with the language somewhat in their culture. And they thought they were going to get an easy A, because you got to get at least 2 foreign language classes and yada, yada, yada. Same way the Latinos do, the Mexicans do, and they take Spanish class. I'm about to burn through this bitch, right? Well, a lot of them Asian Americans were in for a rude awakening because Mandarin is a very difficult language to understand because you got to learn reading and writing and speaking it. And a lot of them Asian Americans was culture shocked because they weren't getting good grades. They weren't doing good. And I was doing okay in the class. And it was me and this Asian girl, Asian American. And the teacher was calling this girl all sorts of ABCs and bananas and all. And it turned into a real contentious situation between the two of them. And I asked the girl there, I said, what the hell is an ABC? And she said, American born Chinese. So there's tension. There's always tension between, when it comes to foreigners, the group that's from the country, that lives in the country, that's about what goes on in the country, and the nigga that's been living in America. And the reason why is It's because you didn't just move over to America. No, nigga, if you was a refugee, you was working with them people. And now you're in American witness protection, hiding over here, living a new life. And the people in your country know what you did. The average American, we don't know the name of the war that got all these Somalians living in Minneapolis. We don't know what happened, right? We don't know what fatwa broke off that made these niggas have to blow their cover and hide in America. But I bet you if some Somalis from Somalia see these, is that Ahmed? That's that bitch ass nigga Ahmed. If some Somalis from Somalia that was in that war seen any of these niggas in America, they'd know what they did. Them Afghans don't want to just hang around for when the Taliban come back. Taliban was keeping tags on all them bitches. So it's time to get out of Dodge. There are some areas that are just known as like havens for snitches. And America is one of them. All our spy assets, they end up coming over here as refugees. That's it for this episode. This is a very brief episode. I just wanted to point this out while I have the chance, because in about 2 years, we're not going to be thinking about this war anymore. We're not going to be thinking about how there were planes of thousands of Afghans flying over to America, settling in. We're going to hear these niggas telling us how they came to this country with nothing and how they pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, and why can't we? And we're going to sit there and we're going to absorb that and internalize that and go, damn, we really can't get ahead as a people. Is there something wrong with black? That's not what's going on. These niggas didn't pull themselves up by nobody's. They didn't pull themselves up by their sandals, nigga. They never do. Every immigrant group that comes to America on a program. And when I'm talking about refugees, not regular immigrants, refugees, which are a large part of the immigrants that come here every year. When we're talking about refugees directly related to our foreign policies in the world, these are snitch assets. It's a bunch of Huggy Bears coming off that plane. And they'll do whatever they got to do to stay in the good graces of America, because they can't go back. It's deeper than rap. They can't go back. Not because the country, there's not a lot of opportunity. No, nigga, that's not what you hiding from where you come from. You can't go back to your hood. That's what it is. You're not going to miss Starbucks. You know there's some stones waiting for your ass when you go back to Afghanistan. And we have to understand as a people, as black people, we got to understand the mentality of somebody like that. The mentality of somebody like that will do anything to stay in the country. They know it can all go away. These people don't come over here better than anybody. They come over here having made a deal. And they get put on. That's how hey, man, you don't got no taxes for 7 years. Hey, we got this program that's going to house you and put you over here in this housing area. You're going to see Afghanistans living in the projects. You're going to see Afghanis living in the projects. Government subsidized housing until they can figure out how to integrate them into the economy and into society. And you're going to turn around one day and there's going to be little Afghan or some shit like that. You're gonna turn around and there's gonna be some little Afghan village, some little artificial Afghan village that got made in the area in Texas, right? It's gonna be somewhere in DeSoto, Texas, or some shit, where it's gonna be little Afghan, and you're gonna be like, what the hell do all these Afghans come over here for? And they're gonna be acting funny towards you being in their community when it's really your community. It's gonna be planted right in the middle of some black hood in Texas. And black folks, as always, are going to be sweet as tea and all welcoming and inviting to them. Watch, you're gonna see Afghan niggas riding around in Cadillacs, swinging, poking out and shit, right? Steel tipping fofos, wrapped in fofos, right? You go see niggas out here being real welcoming to them because that's what we do to everybody, right? But then you're gonna see them, a lot of them acted real funky towards us because they're told don't mix with them niggas. But that's what I wanted to show y'all today. Start doing some research on the Koreans back in the day, and then look at the Korean War. Where all these Ethiopians come from. Look at the Vietnamese that came. It's always lined up with when we got to wrap up a war, when we got to wrap up a theater. Like, just look at Afghan. Look at that whole government we set up, how the entire government had to fly off on a plane. That lets you know how small of an entity can run a country. None of the people on that plane, none of the people that were fleeing with America had ideologies that were in line with the majority of the people in the country. But they were able to impose their will like that for 20 years. And now that it's over, all the people that switched sides, all the people that teamed up with America, they got to go. And where are they going to go? You know how people say, well, since you love that so much, why don't you marry it? That's what happened to those people. Since you love America so much, why don't you go live there? All right. This is for the Africans too. All the Africans that be moving over here, these aren't poor Africans that escaped the... No, a lot of these people are the nephews and nieces and grandkids of corrupt leaders and corrupt politicians that then snuck their stolen, ciphered oil money and blood diamond money off into America and moved their children off to Europe and the United States. Any of those warlords we put in place, when that shit falls apart, they move them to Europe. They move them to America. Which is why they have such funky oppressor mindsets, because they were oppressors where they were from. They just tell you that bullshit immigrants I come here with nothing. I so poor. In my country. Because that's some shit you're supposed to say. That's how you lay cover as an immigrant. These niggas be coming over here. They was a piece of shit in their country. Half the time it'd be some corrupt cop or some corrupt military officer that's shaking down other Nigerians. And then he come over here, he's a Nigerian businessman, and I come here with nothing. Bullshit, nigga. So I'm going to wrap this up. I just wanted you to see where your immigrant buddies come from. These be snitches from other countries. Signing out.